Before getting into the video, like I've been saying for the last few months, if you enjoy the content that we have here on Mighty Mac on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel today so you don't miss any of the content as we get into the summer months of the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series season. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
First responder or a community hero who you would like to see honored trackside at a future event, make sure to nominate them at any.
Well, I thought I was going to get maybe a couple days off from making videos before we got to the Epping, New Hampshire Nationals. No, because of course not. I mean, the news that dropped today was already as big as it can get. I said it about the Ida Zetterstrom, but this one is pretty much just as big. If you have missed the news in the past few hours, Tony Stewart and Stewart-Haas Racing, along with Gene Haas, is shutting down operations at the end of 2024. The team that has started back in 2009 when Tony Stewart invested in Gene Haas's team, which was then a backmarker team that ran a couple, I would say, one-off events, ran part-time throughout most of the schedule, and was pretty much seen at the back half of the pack. And since joining them in the first 3 years, he won a championship with them when he won his third and final in 2011. In 2009, when he first joined, they won the All-Star race and then won a race later in the season at Pocono a couple weeks later. From then on, they had been in this sport for 15 years up to this point, and since then have won 2 championships. Like I said, 2011 with Tony Stewart, 2014 with Kevin Harvick. Have won 69 NASCAR Cup Series races, including the 2017 Daytona 500 as well as 2 Brickyard 400s, scored 339 top 5s, 62 pole awards, as well as an XFinity Championship where they also won 22 XFinity races. The first thing I can really say about this is my heart goes out to the over 300 people that work at Stewart-Haas. To have your entire livelihood shut down by the end of the year is a gut punch. Having your entire lives upturned and having to now decide where you're going to go from here. I can't imagine what they're going through, so my hearts go out to them. There is a statement that Stewart-Haas released, which I'll read real quick, and then we can get into kind of, I guess, the meat and potatoes of what this means for the future of not only Tony Stewart, but also his other involvements. So in a statement that they released, collectively from both Tony Stewart and Gene Haas, they've said, "We have made the difficult decision to close Stewart-Haas Racing at the conclusion of the 2024 season. It is a decision that did not come easily, nor was it made quickly. Racing is a labor-intensive, humbling sport. It requires unwavering commitment and vast resources, with a 365-day mindset to be better than everyone else. It's a part of what makes success so rewarding. But the commitment needed to extract maximum performance while providing sustainability is incredibly demanding. And we've reached a point in our respective personal and business lives where it's time to pass the torch. We're proud of all of the wins and championships we've earned since joining together in 2009. But even more special is the culture we've built and the friendships we forged as we committed to a common cause, winning races and collecting trophies. That is the same commitment we made to our personnel, our partners, and our fans coming into this year, and that commitment will remain through the season finale at Phoenix. We have tremendous respect and appreciation for all of our employees, and we will work diligently to assist them during this transition to find new opportunities beyond the 2024 race season." So, I mean, this is a gut punch. I remember when they first joined together back in 2009, how much of a big deal it was to see Tony Stewart jump into involvement and do a cup ride, considering where he was at that time, running for Joe Gibbs Racing in Toyota and the Home Depot. They had just left Chevy to go to Toyota. Tony Stewart was pretty much a major part of Chevy's deal, so looking back on it, I guess it isn't too much of a surprise that he would make the jump to start his own team to stay with them rather than run the TRD stuff. And then, this is going to leave a massive void in that. I know this is an NHRA channel. I'll get to that in a minute. But, I mean, you think about the void that this leaves, considering how incredibly short they've been in the sport in the 75-year history of the Cup Series. But, I mean, taking a backmarker team and making it one of the powerhouse teams in the Cup Series. At first, running the powerhouse team for the Chevy brand. Then they made the surprising switch to Ford. And then they became the powerhouse team for them and was the face of their program for the last couple of years. The past few years hasn't been that great. So it's not really a surprise considering everywhere you look, the deals that were going on with that team. Bob Parker posted a video and kind of shedded some light that people may have forgotten. One of those being that Ford was leaving at the end of the 2024 season. They were looking to pull back their involvement. It wouldn't be as good as last year, so at the end, I guess they decided to cut ties and move their losses for somewhere else with Ford. And it's not really a surprise because I could be very wrong on this story, but I remember hearing that, well, you know, Tony Stewart wanted to bring Ford back into a 410 sprint car engine. Ford said no, so Tony invested his own money and built his own Ford 410 sprint car engine that they still use to this day. The performance wasn't where it was. It hadn't gotten any better, so it wasn't all that surprising to see where that was going. As well for Smithfield and Anheuser-Busch. Smithfield pulling out of the sport, Anheuser-Busch moving to Trackhouse to sponsor Ross Chastain. They left at the end of 2023. Those are two major sponsors that leaving behind millions of dollars that they need to run that operation, have a 4-car team as well as a 2-car XFinity team, and to lose that and struggle to fill in the gap, not a surprise there as well. What also isn't surprising is while a lot of fans are aiming for Tony's head, if you really paid attention within the last 5 or 6 to 8 years, this isn't a surprise. I mean, considering what Tony has said in the past and multiple interviews and podcasts that he's done. I remember specifically he did an interview with Kyle Petty like back in 2017 when he had that coffee show that he did. He talked about a specific interview that he had with him and the other drivers had with NASCAR and a bunch of executives, and everything that he told them was met in response with, particularly I believe from a GM executive, where he said, that's surprising because we're pretty much going in we have the exact opposite idea, when they wanted to go in the opposite direction of what they did. So I mean, his taste has kind of been soured the last 2 years, most notably when he said at the end, I believe 2022, around Vegas time, they said he found something better to do with his weekends, alluding to his involvement in Top Alcohol Dragster when he started running there part-time in 2022 and then ran full-time in 2023. So it's not a surprise if you really paid attention. He even did interviews with me back at Gainesville. He said something to me that I'm not going to repeat out of respect for him and his PR team that I don't think he should have said. But, you know, Tony being incredibly open as he always is, which is one of his incredible traits I love about him, it was pretty clear where he stood on the matter with NASCAR, and he even alluded to it. You can kind of pick the pieces in the interview I did with him back in Chicago, and you could allude that he may have been talking about NASCAR and some of the answers that he gave me, and you can go watch that video and see for yourself. But I mean, his involvement in NASCAR, his love for and passion for the sport had started to dwindle as the years went on, and it just got worse and worse to the point where, you know, you're spending millions of dollars in a project that you just don't have the love for anymore. And while you may be passionate about wanting to run NASCAR, eventually there's got to be a point where you have your other things that you're doing as well, with the TSR deal and not only NHRA but the World of Outlaws stuff as well. I mean, he sold off All-Star Circuit Championships to the World Racing Group earlier this year. He had SRX that went away. So there comes a point in time where it's just going to end, and sadly enough, 15 years into this deal, both him and Gene Haas have decided just to cut their losses and move on with their lives. Tony with his NHRA deal and his dirt racing career, and Gene Haas running, of course, his CNC business as well as a multi-million-dollar F1 team. One thing I'll say is a lot of people are calling for Tony's head. The only thing I'll say is, what about Gene? This is a very little thing I'm going to point out. He's been gone for like 6 or 7 years and has been so focused on the F1 program. It's not just Tony. And one thing I'll say is there's one comment I saw specifically from a fan that said, you know, Tony Stewart forgot where he came from. The thing I'll start off with is Tony Stewart doesn't owe anyone anything. He doesn't owe me anything. He doesn't owe you anything. He benefited off of NASCAR, and vice versa. NASCAR benefited hugely off of him. The attitude that he brought to the sport, the personality that he brought. How many times since Tony Stewart has retired have we seen highlights of Tony's career, moments of his championships, of his wins at Indianapolis? I mean, Most famously, his helmet throw at Bristol. How many times do we see that every time we go back to Bristol? That is one of the most famous moments in the history of it. So this was a very mutual, beneficial relationship that he had with NASCAR. He doesn't owe NASCAR anything, nor does NASCAR really owe him anything out of this. People saying that he forgot where he came from. I think the fans forgot where he came from. Tony Stewart is a sprint car racer. He is a race car driver. He cut his teeth running the short tracks in this state. Tracks like Terre Haute, tracks like the Fairgrounds, tracks like Lincoln Park, and I believe even I-69, Columbus, Bloomington. IRP, where he's going to be racing this September. Albeit it was on the other track on the short oval, but regardless. It's the same deal as Kyle Larson. Tony Stewart is not a NASCAR driver. He might be a NASCAR Hall of Famer, but he's also a Hall of Famer in the IMS if I'm correct. Tony Stewart is a race car driver who just so happened to choose to race stock cars. It's the same thing with Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson isn't a NASCAR driver. He just so happens to race in NASCAR, but, you know, he raced Indy 500, he races the World of Outlaws, sprint cars, midgets, dirt, late models. He's in everything. Same for Tony Stewart, races the midgets. He's won the Chili Bowl when he was in NASCAR. He competed in sprint car races across the country. You know, even when he was winning championships in the Cup Series, he still found time to try and do the double running Indianapolis 500, and even ran the Rolex 24 at Daytona in a prototype Pontiac. He doesn't owe anybody anything. If he doesn't want to be in the sport anymore, he doesn't have to be. He can do whatever he wants. He happened to find a love in drag racing, and all hats off to him. He's the best thing that has happened to this sport in a long time. Anybody will tell you that. So to hear people say that, you know, oh, he forgot where he came from is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. And I am not going to take that. And, you know, it's one of those dumb things of being offended on somebody's behalf. But no, he never forgot where he came from. To even throw that accusation his way is just absurd. And I know he doesn't care. He doesn't have to care. He's proven everything he's needed to in this sport, and he just so happened to found a new love that reignited his love for motorsports. And I can't wait to see what he does with the future of that team and his career in drag racing. Speaking of which, you know, this is going to be a purely speculatory, like I have been already, but of course, with this deal of him selling the team, you have 4 charters. It has been very much widely talked about how much those charters are worth. Tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. It is skyrocketing. You have 4 charters that you're selling. I'm not sure how the deal is going to break up with how much of an investment Tony had, the percentage that they're going to get out of the sales, but I mean, he could easily get $100 million out of those 4 charters, easily. So now you got to look at the future of what is Tony Stewart going to do. He could easily just pocket the money and run with it. And, you know, all hats off to him. Again, doesn't owe anybody anything. But people have already speculated, you know, maybe he's going to start an IndyCar team. It has been rumored for a while that he's probably going to buy AJ Foyt Racing. I've had ears in that team. I can tell you for a fact right now, as far as I'm aware, there is no talk of Tony Stewart buying that team. I could be wrong. Again, I said this in a tweet, you know, with Tony Stewart, anything's possible. You never know what he's going to do or what's next in his line of what he wants to do with his career and his investments. I don't think he's going to buy an IndyCar team. Personally speaking, I think he likes where he's at. Why would you start a whole nother team? I could be wrong, but I just don't see him starting his own team out of nowhere, let alone, you know, investing and buying out AJ Foyt Racing. I've already heard of who's possibly going to buy that team and where that team's going to go. Tony Stewart isn't even in talks unless it's just hiding behind closed doors and they don't know what's going on. I'm more looking at what is his involvement going to be with the TSR deal. You know, there's going to be massive investments that I think are going to be happening within that team with this money. You know, with the R&D side, you know, new chassis, possibly new crew members, possibly move into a bigger shop. You never know what they're going to do. I know there's a lot of property, I believe, behind Tony's current shop, so, you know, there's a lot that you could do there. But there's obviously the big question, third car. It could easily happen. You never know. Again, Tony's so unpredictable in what he's going to do. This if Tony's watching right now, I'm probably going to see you in Bristol, hopefully, and I'll ask about it then. But I mean, if there is a third car, let's start looking down the lines of, who could take that car. I know at the end of 2023 at PRI, Lyle Barnett's name was thrown out there that could have possibly taken that ride, but because of the lack of fuel runs he's had in a dragster, he ended up being passed up for that role, because you're talking about a factory Dodge ride and more than likely the face of that brand. They don't want to put somebody new in the car. So then you run into the question of, who could be in that car. Some names that I have thrown out for possible ideas: Julian Haas. Ida Zetterstrom, I already pointed out in the last video I made with Jevin Watch. Go watch that there. She made her announcement of her running in Brainerd with JCM. That's one of the big names that's being taken up. The last of the big names that's in the waiting pool to get a top fuel ride right now, I think the top prospect is Julian Haas. I think she's proven of the talent that she has, considering that she ran against Tony Stewart for that top alcohol dragster championship last year and beat him. Her contract's ending this year, and I still say anybody who is not going to take Julian Haas now is going to be banging their head against the wall in 5 years, wondering why didn't we take her when we had the chance. I think she's one of the top prospects in drag racing right now, and if you're not putting her in a car, then you're missing out. I talked with friends in the drag racing community. Someone said Madison Payne could have easily been there, but I believe she said that she wants to go run funny car. Another driver, and this is somebody who could easily take that ride, who is not in the same position as Julian Haas of lacking fuel runs, and that's Cody Crone. Cody Crone, I believe his first race was back at 2023 in St. Louis. Since then, he has ran multiple races to end the season, and then ran multiple races starting at Gainesville all the way up until now, where he continues to run top fuel. He is gaining seat time and experience behind the wheel of a top fuel dragster, and he's right now probably my top pick for the prospects of who could be in a third Tony Stewart car, because of the fact that you don't have to wait, you don't have to speculate how long it's going to take for him to get comfortable. He's comfortable right now. He's made some moves, and he's been quick in a, not to be disparaging as a team, but a more than likely mid-level car, a B2C level car. If he jumps in an A-level car, I threw out there he's on a current Gage Herrera thing, where he's got that seat time, he's got his feet wet, and you put him behind the wheel of a top fuel dragster and top level equipment, he could easily be a guy that's going to go out there right out the box and start running with Justin Ashley and Doug Coletta in the best of the sport. There's another way you can look at this as well with funding others. Justin Ashley's deal with Skag, the way that they're working with Davis Motorsport, where it's not really so much of starting a new team, but investing in an existing team the same way Stewart-Haas even started. TJ Zizzo, he run his own deal. We've seen how good that car is with what they have, with what they did already. #1 qualifier back at Chicago, had a disappointing end to the race there, but he is known as one of the strongest part-time competitors that NHRA has. If you put the money behind him and do the same thing with Justin Ashley, with TJ Zizzo, sky's the limit for that guy. You know how good he is. If he had a full-time backed entry with Dodge branding behind him, you're talking about a major deal that could happen there. So there's a lot that could go there. I know someone brought up, he's not going to be interested in a driver development role. Why wouldn't he just start his own top alcohol dragster then? He could easily do that, follow in the same ranks of, Antron Brown, what he's doing over there. I mean, again, sky's the limit for what Tony Stewart can do. He's found a love for drag racing, and hats off to him. I love that he's here. I love what he's doing for the sport, and I can't wait to see what his future is going to be, especially considering now he's going to have a lot more money to play with in the coming years. And a big question as well now, this is what I'll end it on, is what does this mean for the involvement of Tony Stewart? How long is he going to be in the sport? I think he's going to be in the sport for a while. I have no reason to believe that Tony's just going to get bored and up and quit. He has been very vocal since he got here, since when he first made his debut in NHRA, as a team owner, when he got in a top alcohol dragster, when he started running top fuel. He loves this sport. He loves NHRA. He loves drag racing. for what I understand and what I can tell, he's not going anywhere for a long time. I don't know what it would take to get him out of the sport, because with where the sport's heading, with the trajectory it has, with the promise that it has, and the potential, sky's the limit for this. And that speaks well for what this can mean for Tony Stewart. I don't see any reason whatsoever as to why Tony would get bored with this. You know, Matt Hagan, really good with him. He is at the top of his game, winning championships, winning events. Leah Pruitt could have finished third in the points last year, is currently expecting a child with Tony as they're preparing for that. I'm not saying expecting right now, but I mean that's in the wait. But I mean, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. He loves this sport. He loves drag racing. He loves NHRA. He just loves this community. And as far as I'm aware, he's going to be here for the foreseeable future. And that speaks incredibly well to the future of this sport. So that's where I'm going to end it on. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy the content that we provide here on Mighty Mac, again, subscribe to the channel today. Be sure to like the video down below. Be sure to comment and share with everybody you know to get them excited about the future of drag racing. We'll be back this weekend for the Epping Nationals, the New Hampshire National, New England Nationals, what they call it. We'll be back to give you race day-by-day recaps of the action going on there with their 4 rounds of qualifying. We'll be ready for the Thunder Valley Nationals in Bristol, Tennessee, as well as the coming races within the summer months leading up to the Big Go, the 70th edition of the U.S. Nationals. So again, subscribe, like, comment, share, follow me on social media pages down below, Mighty Mac 03 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And until this weekend at Epping, this is Mighty Mac. We'll see you next time.